Of chapter 1.2 in 6th standard English. The chapter name is Who's the Greatest? Emperor Akbar or Akbar the Great is known as one of the greatest rulers in the world, not just because he had a vast empire, a very strong army, untold wealth, but because he was a good human being. He cared for his subjects. He had great respect for scholars, writers, poets, and artists belonging to different religions. He was a patron of art and culture. The 9 gems or Navratnas in his court were famous. Many people believe that of these 9 gems, Birbal was the closest to the emperor's heart. Akbar loved to pose interesting questions or problems in his court, and Birbal never failed to come up with an equally interesting answer. We don't know whether all the Akbar and Birbal stories that we hear today have any basis in history. They have been handed down over generations, mainly by word of mouth. Here are 2 of them. One day, the emperor entered the court with a very serious expression on his face. As soon as he was seated, he said, "I have a question for all of you. What should be the punishment for someone who pulls my mustache?" The court was stunned. Pull the emperor's mustache? It was unheard of. "Flog him! Give him 50 lashes of the whip!" exclaimed one nobleman. "That's not enough! Put him in jail without water and food," said another. "Whip him! Beat him up! Hang him! Cut him off! Cut off his offending hands!" The agitated courtiers began to cry out. Only Birbal was silent. He was even smiling a little. "What do you say, Birbal? What is your opinion?" "In my opinion, O giver of peace to the world, the offender should be given his favorite sweetmeats." "Raja Birbal, are you out of your mind? Give sweetmeats for such a grave offense?" The courtiers began to say. Birbal smiled and offered an explanation. Yes, who would be so bold as to pull the emperor's mustache? Only his own grandson. When Akbar heard this, he burst out laughing, because that is exactly what had happened in the morning. On another occasion, Akbar was relaxing with some of his courtiers. A few of them thought this was a good opportunity to shower praise on the emperor and get some favors from him. They began to compete with each other in praising Akbar. "You are the greatest of the kings. You are the greatest of the kings or emperors that ever lived on the earth. You are the greatest of all the people in the heaven or the earth. You are as great as God Almighty. You are greater than the God Almighty." Now Akbar was no fool. He did not care for false praise. He stopped the courtiers and asked, "Do you all believe so?" "Yes," they answered in one voice. "All right then, prove it to me. Tell me at least one thing that I can do but God Almighty will not be able to do. Otherwise, you will all incur our royal displeasure. You have till tomorrow morning, to prove it." Akbar then left the place without another look at the courtiers. They were in a proper fix. They thought and thought, but couldn't think of any such thing. In the end, they all went to Birbal. When Birbal heard their story, he told them not to worry. The next morning, the court was full. Everyone was curious to see what would happen next. Well, said the emperor, have you found a good question to my answer to my question? Or are you ready to leave the court forever? Just then, Birbal stepped forward and bowed low. Please don't be angry with those who think you are the greatest. There's certainly at least one thing that you can do, but the God Almighty cannot. Akbar looked at Birbal thoughtfully. And what is that one thing? When you want to punish someone, you can banish that person. You can throw him out of your kingdom. But God's kingdom extends everywhere. The Almighty cannot banish anyone from his kingdom. Akbar's face was lit up with a smile. That was very clever, Birbal. While showing how I have an advantage, you have also shown that God is greater. I believe you. Akbar was so pleased with the answer that he forgave the courtiers for their stupidity. The meanings of a few words over here are patron of art and culture, a person who appreciates, supports and encourages art and culture. Flog means beat someone hard, especially with a whip. Agitated means disturbed. Incur one's our displeasure means make me angry. In a proper fix means in a tight corner in a difficult situation. Now I want you all to continue this reading again and again till you understand the whole chapter and meet me tomorrow in class. Happy reading. Bye boys.